Kadosh, we were continuing with the shiur. We said pasuk Hey. Yeah, pasuk Hey says ve'ata shenevanecha. Now you have your two children. So it says here that after Hakadosh Baruch Hu comes and he gave him Eretz Canaan, he has the rights now to give over the different shivatim. And now the reason why it was taken away from Reuven was because it says mefurash in Divrei Yamim. Which means it says mefurash because of what Reuven did, that he switched the beds. That's why it was given over to Yosef. And now we have to know why exactly was it given to Yosef. The Chizkuni says because Chachamim say in Perek Yesh Nochalin, because he was the one that sustained them, and there's another reason is because he was a Peter Lechem for Rachel. So there's different reasons, either because he was one that sustained them, or he was a Peter Lechem for Rachel, right? And therefore he got the double portion. However, though, listen to the Arizal HaKadosh. The Arizal HaKadosh says, when Yaakov Avinu was told, Goy ukal goyim, that he was going to have a Goy and Kehal goyim. Goy was on Ne'emar, was on Binyamin. Ukal goyim was said on Ephraim and Menashe, that they were going to come out of him. So Yaakov thought that Rachel was going to have another two boys, right? And when Rachel died, so then what did he do? He took the tent and he placed it from the tent, that's what it says, in the tent of Bilhah, because that was Shifchat Rachel. So therefore the child was going to be called on who? On Rachel. What happened? Reuven, right, that he knew this nevuah, he wanted that the children should come from his mother, not from Rachel. So what did he do? Bilbel yitzuo shaya be'ol bilha, in order that he should go to the Ohel Leah, right? And this, he says, is what the pasuk says, Ki'ilu shachav et pilegesh aviv. It's Ki'ilu, he slept with the pilegesh of his father. Ki zilzel bichoda uchod aviv, because he went against the kavod of his father and the kavod of Bilha. The garam, and he was the one that caused shelo yivaled hazera shaya muchal latzet mimena, that he didn't have the children from him, right? Which means that really Be'emet Yaakov was going to have with Bil'ah these two children, but now he caused that it wasn't going to come. V'nigzar b'shamayim she'aneshamot ha'elu yamtinu ad she'isa Yosef et hasenat, and therefore min hashamayim it was decreed that what was going to happen, that now these two neshamot had to wait until a senat is going to come around, and therefore Ephraim and Menashe are considered the children of Yaakov, because היו עתידים לצאת ממנו. ובזה נתקיים מאמר השם שאמר לו, פרא ורבה גוי כל גויים. גם it should be multiplied, כל כל גויים, ובזה נבין למה נתלה בכורה מראובן. Now we understand why it was taken away from Reuven and given to Yosef. שלא יהיה זה דרך עונש. It wasn't like as if to say, עונש, a punishment. רק אחר שגרם שלא ייוולדו מנשה ואפרים יעקב. From the fact that he was the cause that Ephraim and Menashe was not born to Yaakov, היה מוחזק להחזיק מנשה ואפרים כבניו. So therefore Ephraim and Menashe were his children. שבזה נתקיים דבר השם. So now it comes out the word of Hashem. ולקח פי שניים של ראובן שגרם זאת. So he took away the double portion of Reuven, that he was the cause. ונתנה לבני יוסף, and he gave it to the children of Yosef, שלא יפסידו יתר שבטים, in order that other shvatim don't lose out, because they didn't sin. זהו שאמרו חז"ל, and that's what Chazal say in the Midrash, ואני אנה עניבה. What does that mean, ואני אנה עניבה? He comes and he says, במעשה בלהה, שמזלה חזי שעל ידי יוסף, שיוליד שני הבנים האלה, יתוקן חטא מעשה בלהה. Only through the children coming out through Yosef, that's how it's going to fix the chet of מעשה בלהה. So because of that comes that Arizal HaKadosh says, now we understand why the double portion was taken away from Reuven, and it was given to Menashe and Ephraim. Because really, Menashe and Ephraim were supposed to be to the children of Yaakov Avinu. It was only because of the sin of Reuven, or again, whatever the sin means, right, that it was what happened, that they actually lost out, okay? Fine. Then all of a sudden he comes and he says, right, as follows. After all this, that he's now taking away the double portion from Reuven and giving it to the other two children, to Yosef, so when Menashe and Ephraim come, he comes and he starts speaking to Yosef, and he tells him, you should know, all of a sudden Rachel passed away. Yeah, what does that mean, meta alai Rachel? He says, alai hayta el bona. Why? It's on me. Why is it on me? The one that feels it most is that if a woman passes away, the husband feels it. And if the husband passes away, the woman feels it. And therefore, and then he says, however, though the Or HaChaim HaKadosh says, when it says the word alai, it means besibati, because of me. It was because of my cause. Either because Shahani Dro, he waited to give over his neder. And we know the famous Gemara says, Ba'avon nedarim, right? If a person comes and makes a neder, and he doesn't actually pay back the neder, the Gemara says either, right, banav metin, his children pass away, or his wife passes away. Okay, that's a very thing. Or begina klara shekilel, or because of the klala that he cursed, right, that he says, right, whoever is going to be found, the one that took your God, they're going to die. So because of that, when he said alai, it wasn't just on me that I was the one that felt it most, but rather because of me, biglali, because of me, because I was the cause of her death. Now, maybe you're going to say that, right, that he didn't bury her in Ma'arat HaMachpelah. He says, Beretz Kenan Kevartia, which is in the Gvul of Bet Lechem. It was on the border of Bet Lechem, which that is even the better part of Hebron. So it's Ki'ilu, she's in the Ma'arat HaMachpelah. Now, if you're going to tell me Ma'arat HaMachpelah is better, because you had the Avot and the Imahot over there, right? It's still, Mikom Akom, she should have been there. So why didn't he take it? Tamulumar Baderech. What does it mean Baderech? Shaya alai tilchot haderech. It was very difficult because we were on the path, we were traveling. There was a lot of dirt on the path. And he says, everything would have gotten all dirty. And it wasn't fitting to wait because of her kavod. Meaning, if I would have come and start, dragging along and going with her, with her aron until there, it wouldn't have been from her kavod. So he says, fine. But well, it's so close. How long, Bemet, is it from Bet Lechem until Hebron? How long? From Kever Rachel to Hebron, how long is it? Right? So he says, Samulomar, what? It's very close. So he says, Samulomar be'od kivrat eretz lavo Efrata, shadayin haya rov haaretz la'aloch. What does that mean, lavo Efrata? Kol sheken leChevron, that there the Ma'arat HaMachpelah. So he comes and he says, no. What be'ekberei Hashem b'derech Efrat, al ema derech kvadia. I purposely buried her there. Why? Shiyu banei ha'olin le'eretz Yisrael v'ruim kvurotav zochrin otah. Because every time that they're coming up to Eretz Yisrael to live, they're going to see her kevet and they're going to remember her. That's exactly what happened. When Bnei Yisrael were going to the exile to Babylonia, what happened? Once they passed through Kvurata Shel Rachel, her neshama started crying. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu ana ota, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered her, as it says, Mini kolech mibechi. So therefore it was purposely done, right, that I actually went and I buried her over there. Now he says, why exactly did he bury her al derech? So Rashi says al pi hadibur, as we already just brought down. There's another reason brought down, right, that we said that he says here the Chizkuni brings down that it's a ganut. It's a disgrace for a woman that she gives birth, right, to come and to bury her in a far away place because maybe her tachrichim or shrouds are going to get dirty with blood. So because of that, he said it wasn't the right. That's also the Ramban and the Radak say the same thing. Right, and therefore he went and he said, even though I didn't bury her in Ma'arat HaMachpelah, still it was in Eretz Kenan and it wasn't in Chutz Haaretz. And therefore he went and he said it was Baderech. Yeah, okay, fine. Okay. Afterwards he comes and he says, why exactly, what was the kavanah that, he said it was two achayot. We know that obviously there was a reason for it. Right? Some people say that he first had to bury Leah in Ma'arat HaMachpelah because he was married to her be'eter first, right, with the permission first. And only afterwards did he get married to Rachel. But he says, but there was another reason, right? He says it was another reason. He comes and he says, another reason why he brings down over here, he says beautifully, he says like this, that Ma'arim Vina. Yeah? This is usually the Rabbi Yitzchak bin Vayna is the Or Zarua. He comes and he says like this, he says, but that was a chelek of Binyamin. Meaning that was her portion. She was buried in the portion of Binyamin in the future. He says, why? Because Ma'arat HaMachpelah was in the portion of Yehuda. So she would have been buried there. So she would have been buried kilu in a kever that's not hers. So that's the Or Zarua. Means that she was actually buried in the portion of her child instead of being buried in the portion of Yehuda. However, though the Chizkuni brings another reason, he says because Ma'arat HaMachpelah was still not 100% his. Because remember that even when he passed away, there was still an idur on him. So he says, because that's what he says, Esav was Ma'arer Alea. So therefore he went and he did it Baderech. But when he was already Koveret Leah, he says, Kvar alach lo Esav el artzo ve'niach li et hakol. He already left and he left me everything. Now, again, the question on that is that even afterwards, when Yaakov passed away, still Esav came. And that's when Hushim ben Dan came and he killed him, right? But again, he just says that Esav already left. That means when Rachel passed away, Esav was still there with, no, maybe it's his, maybe it's on his. But now that's the entire question. But technically speaking, the entire question was supposed to be is that there were two places left. One was supposed to be for Esav and one was supposed to be for Yaakov, right? But rather, Yaakov wanted to buy both, so therefore he gets both places. Okay, fine. Yeah, I think they know nowadays where they are, but it's somewhere different. Now he says over like this. So what happens? Yisrael comes and he sees Bnei Yosef. Okay, he sees the children of Yosef, and he comes and he starts asking, who are they exactly? Yeah, what is this exactly? Right? There's a whole thing here. Exactly, what does that mean? Okay, some people say that the Ruach HaKodesh went away from him, right? And then all of a sudden he starts asking. There's a whole question exactly what's going on. But we did say, if you remember, that when it says Vayad Yisrael, whenever mentioned Yisrael, it means it was spiritual. It wasn't just a physical. Okay, so therefore here it says it's Vayad Yisrael et Ben Yosef. Yisrael comes and he sees the children of Yosef, and he says, who are these? So he comes and he shows the Shtar Erusin, right? To show that he wasn't an Ketubah, to show that it wasn't a Pilegesh. Because remember, a Pilegesh, right, is without the Ketubah. So he comes here and he says, he showed that no, this is 100%, it's his wife. And therefore he comes and he shows them. Now all of a sudden what happens is he brings them and he comes and he switches his arms. So he says, first of all, it's not derech eretz. Why is it not derech eretz? The Bechor, the father always has to come, and when he's going to bless his children, and we mentioned this many, many times, because I've seen it a lot of times by Birkat Kohanim, that people make this mistake. Right? By Birkat Kohanim, the same thing. That what's happening is you always have to put your right hand on the Bechor, because he is the Muvcheret La'avodah U'Lazar, Birkat Hamazon, always the right hand, you always do, whether it's going to be anything, whether it's going to be the services, whether it's going to be the sprinkling, whether it's going to be Birkat Hamazon, you always use your right hand. So therefore, you're always going to use your right hand for the most important thing. So you had to put it right on Menashe. What did he do? He did the other way. Which one? He switched the hands. So why exactly did he do that? It means, right, that he still did it. Now why? So the Chizkuni comes and he says that he did it, right? Sikelet yadav, he did it with a skel v'chokhmah. He did it with wisdom. Why? Really, Bemet, instead of going like this, what are you going like this? Just switch them. Tell them to switch. So here the Chizkuni comes and he says, he didn't want to be Mevayesh et Menashe. He didn't want to embarrass Menashe. So in order to not to embarrass Menashe, he went with Sikelet Yadav. Now why is that exactly? Because many times when the people come for a blessing, right, they don't look at the person's face, right? They have their head down. So since they have their head down, they won't be able to see that now he comes and he switches the hands. So if you're going to switch them, they know you switch me places. What's going on over here? But now if he does like this, they don't see. They just feel the hand, but they don't realize that he switched the hands. So he didn't want to embarrass him, right? Now why did he do that? Obviously, purposely, he didn't want to cause that. However, though, from all the Pirushim, they come and they explain this. It comes out that Yaakov actually, what did he do? He changed his hands like this. Rabbeinu Bachyai has a Pirush Mechudash. He has an incredible explanation, something new. What did he have? He comes and he says, no, Vayishlach Yisrael et yimino v'yashet rosh Ephraim, sheshina et Ephraim u'moshcho limino. He moved Ephraim. Ve'etzem lo rosh Menashe, shina Menashe u'moshcho limino. He went and he actually moved them, not his hands, he moved them. And he didn't actually change his hands whatsoever. That he left it, but he changed the children. And that's the explanation, Sikelet Yadav, from the hands of Yosef, which means Yosef came and he put Menashe on the right of Yaakov and Ephraim on the left of Yaakov. Yeah, he went and he switched it. He was the one that he actually switched the children, not his hands. That means according to Rabbeinu Bachya, he actually switched the children be'emet. He didn't switch. Now, obviously, Yosef didn't like this. Why didn't Yosef like this? Because Yosef saw, right, the entire thing, what happened the entire time, which we're going to speak about when it says Yadati b'ni Yadati. So 1 second, okay? Now what happens? Immediately Vayvarech et Yosef. He blesses Yosef. And what does he say? Right? He comes and he blesses Yosef, and all of a sudden he blesses the children. So what's going on? So we did mention this already in the past, if you remember, that it says over here, Patach b'bidikat Yosef, velo birech ki ima ne'arim. He's blessing Yosef, but he didn't bless Yosef. Who did he bless? He blessed the children. Why? Says the Ramban, b'birkat ne'arim, ki hi birkat Yosef. The best blessing that you could ever give a person is by blessing his children. He says, Ki lo yalo zera acher. He didn't have any children. V'haita kol birchato b'birkat elu ne'arim. So everything was on these children. Or even if it was, that was the biggest blessing. However, though, the Rechaim HaKadosh and the Sforno, they say, Vayvarech et Yosef, Kanan Hasham HaKatuv shebirech Yosef. Really, Be'emet, he did bless Yosef. But he didn't have to tell us any proof of hugging and kissing and this and that. Velo uskam hayta bracha. He didn't have to mention it. Umikam va'elach, but now he's going to mention the bracha of the Ne'arim. If you remember, when it mentions here to do the entire concept of chibuk v'nishuk, we already brought it down by Lavan. If you remember, we brought down by Lavan. Why was it so important to mention that Lavan got up and he went and he started blessing his children, and it's written in the Torah? So there we said, we brought down, the entire concept was that it's so important, the bracha of a parent to a child, because he wants it so much that it should be fulfilled, that it will usually be fulfilled. And that's why it's so important for the parents to always come and to give the blessings to their children. But not only that, when you come and you're going to kiss them, you're going to hug them, you're showing them the affection, it's much more closer to be actually answered. Okay, so therefore it's very important to have this as well. Now he comes and he says, right? So he comes and he starts saying that my forefathers went in the path of Hashem. So he says, he wasn't speaking about himself, right? Even though he did go also in the path of his forefathers, but rather he only mentioned his forefathers. Yeah, which means that he did everything with his forefathers. Yeah. Nowadays, we're listening to Shiurim now every single morning, by Rav Bar Shalom. He wrote incredible sefarim on Mishpat HaKetubah. He wrote sefarim on the Ketubah, and now he's coming out also on Kiddushin. And he was telling us that it once happened with Rav Galinsky, that even though he was obviously a big Rosh Yeshiva and everything, he was the MC. He was the one, the master of service, so he was calling out who gets, all the aliyot. Now, you're not just going to call out, this rabbi, that rabbi. You have to say the big rabbi this, and he's, whatever he is over there, and another big rabbi over there, and another one this. So he went and he said, when the fifth bracha came, it was for himself. So he goes, right? Mechubad for the fifth bracha, Harav Gaon Agadol Ani. Yeah, he was trying to make fun of it, as if to say that the entire thing is it's all names and everything, but it's all titles. You understand? It's all just nicknames, but it's at the end nothing. We've mentioned it many times, if you remember. Yitzchak ben Walid, I went to his Kevin in Tetuan. If it wasn't for the fact that who's his son that's buried beside there, nothing. No titles, no nothing. You know where he's going to get all the titles? Upstairs. He doesn't want nothing. Yeah? Yeah. No titles, nothing. This is what it is. You understand? The titles are after 120, and even that, he preferred no titles. Nothing whatsoever. But he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was the one that did it. He didn't speak about himself. He spoke about his forefathers. So what did he say? Hamalach hagoel oti mikorra. So who's he praying to? Yeah? Who's he praying to? He says, Hamalach hagoel oti mikorra. Who's he praying to? When he says, Hamalach hagoel oti mikorra, who's he praying to? To Hashem? Huh?
I couldn't understand that part. Some angel.
Very good. So he says, listen carefully. He says, Enzu tefillah el malach. It's not a tefillah to the malach. Ela tefillah el shulcho shel malach. It's to the sender of the malach. And
this ever happened? Is there any other?
The what?
This particular with the malach. Is this the only place?
I don't recall.
From what I understood,
Yeah.
It says that angel that was protecting me or was trying to.
Well, that's what he says here. The one that he says, Hamalach hagoel oti mikorra. He says why? Hamalachim, they're the shluchim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore he comes and he says, Ribono shel olam. Yeah, he comes and he says, Shitralechu avotai lefanav, v'shaya roeh oti. Yehi ratzon lefanav. He's saying it should be your will that the malach that comes and he's supposed to guard me, he should also redeem me from all negative things, just like he redeemed me from Lavan and from Esav and all these different things. right? He's saying he should also come and he should protect also his children as well. That's what he's saying over here. That I should also be able to bless them as well. Okay, now another explanation though of Hamalach HaGoel Oti Mikol Ra'is is that he's blessing HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he didn't have a bad wife. He says, why? Tichtiv aleh amar mimavet. Right? Vayedeh zeh hayta mitato shelema. Who says this? Who says this? The Zohar HaKadosh. Yeah? The Zohar HaKadosh says this. So that's what he says. He says, Hamalach HaGoel Oti Mikol Ra'is, you redeemed me from all evil. You didn't give me a bad wife. Baruch Hashem. Yeah, that's what he says. Okay, fine. Very good. Now comes Yaakov Avinu, and first of all comes Yosef, and he says, listen, my father, I'm sorry, but there's a mistake here. So he comes and he tells him, Yadati b'ni Yadati. I read a chidush here, which is actually a Midrash Rabbah. We always spoke about it, we spoke about it last week, that we always thought that Yaakov Avinu never knew about the sale. Listen to this. It says, Yadati b'ni Yadati, Yadati maaseh bilha. I knew about the sin of bilha, which means he already knew the nevuah of bilha. Yadati maaseh Yehuda v'Tamar. I know what happened with Yehuda v'Tamar, that the malach was the one that pushed him to do it. Umad varim shelo nitgalu lecha nitgalu li. Just like the things that were revealed to you were revealed to me. Devarim shenitgalu lecha, the things that were revealed to you, which is your mechira. Why? Yosef thought, right? There's a Midrash Rabbah with a Yefet Torah explaining it. Because Yosef thought that what happened to Yosef? What was the cause? If somebody's going to ask you now, the truth is the Gemara Mefureshet. The Gemara says, why did we go down to Mitzrayim? Because of the Klimila, because of the jealousy that was caused. But what does he say here? Yosef thought that everything was caused because of the jealousy. Because since he loved him more, there was jealousy. So now, what was Yosef? Yosef wanted to fix that mistake. He saw what was the ramifications of those actions. So his entire life, he was fighting that there should be equality. There shouldn't be any type of differences of sibling rivalry. So what happened? All of a sudden, he thought that Yaakov didn't know about the sale. So therefore, he was a makpid of putting kina. So what happens? It says Yaakov, She'ima nistar mimcha nodali, everything that was hidden from you was revealed to me. Kol shekena mechira. The mechira, I know about the mechira. Ve'af al pi she'echrimu shelo legalo ve'shetfu et Hashem benehem. Even though there was a cherem. The cherem was that nobody was going to find out, which means Yitzchak Avinu knew, Hashem knew, Yosef knew, but nobody was going to go against the cherem. Keshenimtza Yosef, hetiru acherem. When Yosef was found, they permitted the cherem. So according to this Midrash Rabbah, it comes out that if somebody is going to tell you now, 1 second, Yaakov Avinu, Yaakov Avinu knew about the sale. Yaakov Avinu knew exactly what happened. And that's what it means, Yadati b'ni Yadati. Just like I knew about what happened with Reuven and Bilha, I knew what happened with Yehuda and Tamar, I know exactly what's happening also with the sale. And therefore I'm doing it purposely. Yadati b'ni Yadati. It's something incredible because again, usually we come and we always think, if somebody's going to pull the plug afterwards, what do you always think? Yaakov Avinu passed away, never knowing about the sale. Right? And one of the proofs to that was, if you remember, we said, why didn't he ever tell the brothers to ask for forgiveness? Why did the brothers have to come afterwards? Well, you think Yaakov would have left it on the back burner? But really, Bemet, according to this Midrash, Mefurash, he didn't know. He knew about the sale. Now he says over here, another incredible explanation. This is brought down in the Me'am Loez, that why does he say Yadati b'ni Yadati? Yosef actually thought that maybe Be'emet, why is my father pushing away Menashe? He's saying because maybe Be'emet, this isn't my Bechor. Why? Maybe I sinned with Potifar. And then it comes out, if Menashe is not the Bechor, somebody else is the Bechor. So therefore, he purposely wanted to show that he's not the Bechor. So therefore, it says, Vayera be'enav. It was bad in the eyes of Yosef, which means it was difficult. What, my father suspecting me that I sinned? So he went and he said, right, no, Yadati b'ni Yadati, I know that you didn't sin with the wife of Potifar. Why? Because you saw my face in the window. And for sure, Menashe is the Bechor. However, though, Achiva Katan Yigdal Mimenu. The younger brother is going to be greater. Which means that it was a completely different dialogue here. Yosef was thinking, the father, he's suspecting, 1 second, he probably sinned with Potifar. There's another child that's Yosef's, and therefore there's not the Bechor. If there's not the Bechor, what do I have to put the right hand? I'm purposely going to put left hand to show that there's not the Bechor. There's another child here. There's something else here. But rather not. I know that you didn't say Mufti. I know. And I know that he's a Bechor. But he's going to become greater. Yosef, so he comes and he says to Yosef, yeah, after he already blessed Ne'arim and he made them 2 Shvatim, he comes and he says, right, that he's going to redeem him from all the different sufferings. And then he comes and he says, I'm going to give you Shechem Echad Alachecha. I'm going to give you an extra portion. What exactly is that portion? So Rashi already we brought down was what? Because of the Kvura, right? Because he actually buried him. And even though we said, it's Chesed Shelemet means that he doesn't get anything in return. He didn't expect anything. So even though he gave it to him, it was okay. However, though he comes and he says, yeah, the Shechem was given, right? Why was it given Davka to Yosef? He says very simple. You know why? It was given to Dinah. Dinah was given Shechem. Why? Because when they came and they said, Harbu alai meod mo harumatan, Shechem, the city of Shechem, was given to Dinah. Now what happened? Asenat was the daughter of Dinah. So she was the one that was inheriting that. And that's why Yosef got it. Because Yosef got married to Asenat, the daughter of Dinah. And therefore it makes sense why he gets this portion of Shechem. Okay, that's actually brought down over here. However, though, right? Okay, there's a whole bunch of different explanations here, exactly. But there's also Rabbeinu Bachiyai. Rabbeinu Bachiyai comes and he says, we know that it says, Becharbi uvkashti. What does Unkulu say? It's Bitzloti uvauti. He says, why is it Bitzloti uvauti? Right? So he comes and he explains over here as follows. He says that Tfilah, Megina la'adam kecherev biyad gibor. He says Tfilah protects, just like a sword protects. We know there's a famous, if I remember correctly, I think it's a Bet Levi that he comes and he says that what's the explanation when he comes and he says, why is it compared to Betzaloti Vauti? He says Becharbi Kashti. We know that there's a cherev and there's a keshet. The cherev is a sword. The keshet is a bow. The cherev, right, the sword, you could only kill when you're up close. The keshet, which is the bow, you could kill even when you're far away. So what did he say? Bitzloti uvauti. He says when you're talking about the tzloti uvauti, it means when you're talking about the tfilah. Now there's 2 types of tfilah. There's a tfilah which is like the Amidah. And then there's the tfilah which is extra supplications. Okay? The tfilah in itself is like a cherev. The tfilah that we pray with Amidah is like a cherev, which means if it cuts, it could pierce no matter what's going to happen. Why? Because when you're close to someone, it doesn't matter what you're going to do. If you're going to start striking, you're bound to hit. No matter what's going to happen, you're bound to hit. Doesn't matter where, but you're bound to hit. The keshet, the bow and arrow, you need much more accuracy. So you need much more kavanah. That's why he comes and he translates it a bit saloti uvauti, which is very, very important. Just to always you have to have a lot of kavanah, much more kavanah when you're praying a personal supplication, when you're doing the Amidah. Obviously, Amidah has to have kavanah, right? But even as long as you're coming and you're praying, that in itself, it's able to pierce up above. But when you're doing a personal, you need much more kavanah, right? And that's why he's comparing it to a bakasha and not just to the, right? That's what he's saying over here, to bauti, to the regular ones. Now he comes and what happens? All of a sudden, he wants to reveal to them the end of days. So he comes and he tells the children, Vayikra el Yaakov el banav, and he tells them, Hasfu. So it says over here, the Malbim and the Midrash Rabbah brings down, what does it mean, Hasfu? If you guys want the Mashiach to come, the first thing that you have to do is join together. Hasfu, come together. He says, why? Because Sinat Chinam was the cause of all the hatred and all of everything. If you guys come together, you're going to have a Charita Yamin. You're going to have everything very quickly. But if not, that's going to be the cause that you're not going to have a Charita Yamin. So the Gemara Pesachim actually says that when he went and he says, right, I'm going to be Shumam Lakish, he says, he wanted to reveal the Ketz and he wasn't able to. So he went and he told them what? This is actually brought down also in Yonatan Menuziel, if you remember. That if you remember, we once gave an entire shiur on what is Yeheh Shemer Abba Mevarach. And we said that Yeheh Shemer Abba Mevarach is the exact same thing as Baruch Shem Kvo Mochtulam Ve'ed. If you remember, right? We connected the two. And we said that what happened is that the Shema Yisrael has 2 explanations. What is Shema Yisrael? Shema Yisrael either means listen all of Bnei Yisrael, right? Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and that's why it's written in there in Parashat Et Chanan, because there it's referring to all of Bnei Yisrael. But then we have another one which is Shema Yisrael, Yaakov Avinu. Shema, listen, our father Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem, that He's our God, He's only Hashem Echad, meaning that we only believe in Hashem. That means we don't have any Avodah Zarah, we don't have nothing. And then Yaakov Avinu was the one that answered Baruch Shem Kvo Mochtulam Ve'ed, which is basically Yeh Shemer Abba Mevarach La'olam Memiyah. So what happened? That's why we have the entire thing So we had the question: are we supposed to say Baruch Shem Kol Mochadom Ved or not? Why? Moshe Rabbeinu, when we said Shema Yisrael Shem Elokeinu Echad, there was no Baruch Shem Kol Mochadom Ved said. But when Bnei Yisrael, meaning the children of Yaakov Avinu, the tribes, they did say Shema Yisrael, he answered, so are you supposed to say it or not? So because of that, we say it quietly, right? However, though, I still remember I once heard a shiur many years ago by Rav Asher Weiss. We were in the mountains in Tigny in France, and he asked, what is the kavanah you're supposed to have? When you say Shema Yisrael, are you supposed to have the kavanah Shema Yisrael Yaakov Avinu, or Shema Yisrael of Bnei Yisrael? So after a whole bunch of people going back and forth, he wanted to say that you're supposed to have Bnei Yisrael. Because he said at the end of the day, what was written in the Torah is what we're saying, and therefore you should have of Bnei Yisrael. Okay? We're just going to finish, right, with the following. Yeah? This is the... Yeah? He comes and he says like this. First of all, okay, I'm going to say two things. One of the things that Yakut Ruveni, that he says in the name of Kamfei Yonah, that when Yaakov and Moshe wanted to come and bless Yisrael, the first thing that they did was to be mekanter. They first gave them on the head. Why? He says, which means first you have to give them musar. Once the mekatrigim hear that they're cursing them out, they're giving them musar, they let you alone. And then you come and you give them all the berachot. It's like the Sayyid Azazel. You first give the Sayyid to the Azazel, and then you come and you do everything that you need to do. So you first give to the bad, to the chitzonim, and then you come and you do whatever you want. That's one thing. However, though, Yaakov Avinu comes and he gives musar. We spoke about this a long time ago, if you remember, in Elul Advarim. Why did he give musar, dafka, at the end of his life? So that way they wouldn't be embarrassed. But that's also that the most of it makes an impression and they remember. And usually people remember the last thing that people told them, or the last, things that the last time that they saw them. Sometimes somebody comes and says, "Oh, I didn't have the opportunity to come and to see him," right? And sometimes you tell them, if you would have seen them, it wouldn't have been a good remembrance. Meaning you would have remembered them with all the tools, the this, the that. Sometimes it was a beracha that you didn't see them at the mamash at the end. That's what you remember for the rest of your life. That's what you actually remember. So people remember the last things that people are telling them. However, though, I wanted to finish off with the beautiful Etzel Chaim HaKadosh and other Rishonim as well, which is basically as follows. He comes and he gives them a blessing. What is a blessing? At the beginning he comes, he says, Aruga Pam Kiaz, he curses them out, right? He comes and he tells Shimon Velevi, Kle Hamas, is a blessing. It's a curse. Yeah? So we have the zechut of having with us, I'm going to say it's the Davar Shem Omro. I heard a shiur of Rabbi Mansour we're talking about many, many years ago. Yeah, when they was still in I don't know if it was in the tapes or maybe it was already in the CDs. Yeah, but many, many years ago. And he brought down these Rishonim and he said as follows: the biggest beracha that you could ever give to a person is what? You curse their midot raot. Which means, what is the concept of a curse? Beracha, you always want to maximize. You want to make more. That's beracha. V'yeh beracha, abundance. What is a curse? You're trying to make it smaller. So he says here, and that's what's brought down here, whether it's Chaim HaKadosh and the other Rishonim, he says when it says, Arura Pam, Kavanato Haita Lechalek Amruba Bahem Yoter Mishiur Ragil. What does that mean? To curse that you don't want that much anger. Klomar, meaning to say, Shechsar Mika'asam, Mashesh Behem Yoter Mashiur. They had too much of an anger. So what are you going to do? You're going to curse them. By cursing, you're not cursing them, the human being, you're cursing their anger. You want that their anger should minimize, and therefore they should only use it in a proper midah, in a proper form, and not that there's so much anger. So therefore, bemet, every single one of these bemet, it was a beracha. From the beginning until the end. And even though in our eyes we come and we say, wow, what type of beracha? Imagine a father coming and he starts that's what you want. No. Bemet, this is actually the biggest beracha that you could give to a person. So when you're cursing their anger, so they have much less anger, that in itself is a very, very big beracha in itself.